So thank you very much, Tanya, for giving me some feedback recently on my DISC profile, which was quite enlightening. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about what DISC personality profiling is, for those business owners who haven't already heard of it.
Yeah, sure. DISC personality profiling measures behaviour. So there was a guy in the 1920s called William Marsden, who came up with the theory that behavioural characteristics can be grouped together in 4 major groups, which are the acronym D, I, S and C. And he said, he was a psychologist, and he said that people with similar styles tend to exhibit specific behavioural characteristics that are common to that style. So all people share these 4 styles in varying degrees of intensity. So some can have them in a stronger intensity than others. And the acronym DISC stands for the 4 personality styles. And they're represented by the letters D, which is like dominance or a driver. I, which is influencing or inspiring. S, which is steady and stable. And C, which is correct and compliance.
Okay, fabulous. Yes, and it was very interesting to find out that I was rather high I.
You
were. Recently I was reading in a book, in the book Reading People, How Seeing the World Through the Lens of Personality Changes Everything, by Anne Bogle. And she says, or she states, that some people resist personality frameworks because they say that those frameworks put them in a box. How do you think that personality profiles like DISC can help business owners?
Yeah, a few people do say that, actually, that it can put people in a box. And I understand, people's concerns, but, it's one tool to help people understand really a bit more about themselves. And certainly people I've worked with have found it really, really useful to get them to understand themselves. You then start to notice things in other people, your family, your friends, your co-workers. And for me, DISC is about helping you to be able to work more effectively with other people through understanding yourself and others, so you can communicate more effectively because you understand how other people like to communicate, and so you can avoid conflicts with others. You can ensure that you recruit the right people into your teams because you know what you need in your team, and you have this profile that you can use to make sure you recruit the right sorts of people into your team. You can lead more effectively because there are DISC leadership profiles where you can learn a bit more about your leadership style, and that really can be really helpful. And through people working more effectively together because they understand each other better, you can retain staff in all your organisations as well, because people are happier at the end of the day. There's not as much conflict, people are getting on, and so people want to stay in the organisation.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, as you said, I can see that DISC profiling could be a really quick method for recruiters to pre-qualify candidates for jobs. So, yeah, in your experience, how reliable do you think that is as a pre-qualification?
I do think it works really well. I actually talked to an HR director that has used it in their organisation, and they said that by using this method, through using the DISC, they improved sales in their sales team by 20% just by getting more better people into the organization that were a better fit, really. Because ultimately, and again, I always stress that it's one tool. I'm not saying that it's the be all and end all and it's going to solve the world's problems, but it can be really, really unfortunately, but it is a really essentially people perform better when they're in roles where they're a good fit within the role, and they're a good fit for the role and for the organisation and the culture of the organisation. And when you find out, DISC allows you to find out the personality traits of the individual, and it can uncover ways that the individual reacts to challenges, or how they like to behave in a team situation, for example. And so it kind of helps you understand if they're going to fit into your team, but also helps the candidate to kind of integrate into their job better, learn more about themselves and what they're good at, and maybe what areas that they need to sort of work on to do the job to its full potential.
Okay, no, that's really helpful. I think that, you know, also one of the things, not just about recruiting for jobs, but, you know, one of the other challenges that we talked about is, you know, how difficult it is to target people with sales and marketing messages that kind of meet, you know, their requirements really, or that speak to them, that resonate with them. So if we look today at the kind of marketing that really works, it's marketing that's much more dynamic, that's got much more personalized content. Do you think it's possible to even adapt our marketing messages to people based on their individual DISC preferences?
Oh yeah, for sure. And actually people are using it for their websites. For example, you know, I've talked to people about who are doing that on their websites. And yeah, even in individual sort of marketing campaigns, because if we think about a C profile, a C profile likes a lot of detail, and they like to read up a lot about the subject before they come to a decision about whether they want to buy the product. So on your marketing material, if you're wanting to get that kind of target that kind of person, you know, or you're wanting to make sure that you're covering off that kind of person, you know that you need to have more information. So on a website, what often people do now is that they have a kind of more bullet points on like the front page, which will be more impactful for like a D personality who likes short and sharp and just to quickly read something and get the main idea. And then there's click-throughs to other areas where the people who want more detail can go and find out as much information as they want. So you're kind of you're making sure that both people are satisfied with your website. So that's the kind of one example of how you can use it and think about and making sure that everybody's needs are catered for.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I think that, you know, a lot of different profiles, you know, different profiles will have different preferences also in the way that they're sold to. And so for some people, giving them a lot of information would be really useful. For other people, it might just bamboozle and overwhelm them.
Yeah.
So getting that understanding of somebody's profile is, you know, very important. So do you have any, you know, specific advice for sales or pre-sales people about how they might flex their own style for each of those DISC dimensions?
Yeah, I think so if we're looking at a D style, if we think about that from a sales perspective, as I said, they like short and sharp information. They're quite decisive individuals, so they will make a decision very quickly, and they just don't want a lot of waffle and a lot of kind of information thrown at them. They just want to know exactly what you're trying to sell, what it's all about, very clearly, and then they'll make their decision. So that's for that type of person, and they're quite direct individuals anyway, so they'll make their feelings, you know, fairly well known. With your I personalities like yourself, I think you need to make it fun, have a laugh with an I person. They like to chat and to build relationships with people. So it's about listening to the I, listening to them. Their I's have often got a story to tell, or, you know, something to share. So making sure that you listen to them and is really, really important, and just have a fun kind of chatty conversation with them, and they'll appreciate that. Then your S and your C types are far more reserved and are very much less keen to be sold to. So you have to be more kind of careful about it. You have to expect that they may want to go away and think about it before making a decision. I've talked about the C in the last question, you know, much more detail, much more. They'll have gone away and researched the product or whatever it is that you're selling, and they'll have lots of questions that they want to clarify. So, you know, be prepared for quite a long conversation going into quite a lot of detail about it. And anything about the S's? Yeah, I think with the S's, they don't like to be pushed. And they don't like to be really sold to. So it's about building up that relationship. S's are more reserved, but they're still very people orientated. So it's about, again, listening to them, because they generally are very good at listening to other people. So, but if someone listens to them, they like that. And it's like, oh, wow, that's really nice. And so just really building up that relationship, giving them the time and the space, and to not be too kind of pushy or anything, just being quite relaxed in the sales kind of speak and what you're saying to people.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And I think sometimes the way that a lot of people sell is they sell in the way that they would like to be sold to. And they don't necessarily adapt their style. So I think it's really important.
And I think that comes into a lot of areas. We kind of behave with other people how we like people to behave with us. So, you know, if you are a very sort of personable kind of person, you're very chatty and like wanting to sort of build up great relationships with people, but there might be people that are a lot more reserved and not so keen to be all chatty and everything. And sometimes us more chatty individuals like myself might be like, oh, do they not like me, or, you know, is there a problem here? But they're just more reserved and don't chat as much. So we need to, that's why it's useful to know about it, because you can start to go, oh yeah, they're that type of individual, and so this is how they like to be talked to, and in whether it's sales or you know, whatever sort of conversation you might be having with them.
Yeah. No, I'm certainly sure that most of us can put, you know, certain clients or certain business colleagues in, or recognise those traits in some of our colleagues and customers as well. So yeah, what was interesting was that as you know, a business owner myself, learning that I'm high I helped me really identify what kind of team members I might need on the team to be able to support my business and perhaps do the things that I'm less inclined to do myself. So what other benefits do you think, or have you heard from business owners that you've dealt with and leaders about, you know, how it's really helped them once they've gone through the process of DISC personality profiling?
I think it helps in sort of larger organizations where you've got a team. I think it helps managers to really understand their team better and understand how they can get the most out of the different team members, rather than kind of behaving the same to everybody. They can maybe flex their style a little bit so that they get the best out of their team. I've kind of used it with teams as well, where there are either new teams or there's some sort of conflicts, or they're not performing as well within a team. And by everybody getting to know each other a lot better, you can sort of see where the difficulties lie and start to open a conversation about how to improve the situation. Because actually sometimes people think that other people are being difficult, and actually they're not being difficult, they just behave differently. And sometimes we don't understand those behaviours because it's not what we would do, but it's not that they're being difficult. So it kind of is a really good way in teams, in any situation, to just open up conversations and to go, okay, so you like to do things like this. Oh, I see now. So, you know, whereas I like to do it in a different way. I've also find it's been really helpful actually for franchise owners to understand, kind of get an idea, rather like, you know, recruitment, but with when you've got your own franchise, it can be really useful to sort of find out what the best personality profile is for somebody that you're working with as a franchisee, and then try and recruit sort of similar styles of people, because sometimes if you're selling a franchise, people can be really, really good at the particular job of the franchise, but they maybe aren't so good at the business side of it, or vice versa. They might be good business owners but not so good at the softer side of whatever it is that you're selling. So it can be quite useful for that. And we've talked about sales, and how that it can be, it's helped people with that. And also with smaller businesses, I've used it quite a lot with business owners who are looking to upscale the business. They're looking to drive the business forward, and there's some sort of pain points there. There's some problems there, and they're trying to understand how they can manage these areas. And often it can be us as business owners that are sort of causing the blocks sometimes, because of things that we could do differently. But it's hard for us to kind of take a step back and go, I maybe I need to get someone on board to do this part, because that's not maybe a strength of mine, or maybe I could deal with a situation from a different perspective, because I usually do it like this, but actually, and look, that's what my profile says I usually do it like. Maybe I could sort of just change and do it slightly differently and see what happens, and that could help the situation. So it again can help business owners really push things forward in their business.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, I think that's been really useful to actually hear the benefits, and some practical ways that you can implement it within any kind of organisation, regardless of the size. So yeah, just in case people were interested, could you maybe give us an idea of how much time it might take to go from start to finish and go through that profiling process for an individual, and then perhaps also for a team?
Yeah, so the actual questionnaire, it's an online profiling tool. So I send a questionnaire through, and the individual answers the questionnaire online, and it only takes 10 minutes, although it's quite tricky, I believe, isn't it, Vanessa? Yeah. It can be quite like, and you just have to go with your gut instincts and just do it, and that it works out. It all works out okay. And then I do a one-to-one with the individual, generally on the telephone, going through, telling them a bit more about DISC, and then going through their profile in more detail, which usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And then I send the report through to them. So it produces quite a large report, about 28 pages, and I can send that through I always send that through to them, and so they can read it up further on it. And obviously, if they want any more coaching afterwards, then I can also provide that. But that's the sort of general idea. And then for teams, I would generally profile all the team in that way, and then I would go in and do a training session for maybe a half a day, to get people to start to work through the areas that need working on.
Okay, fantastic. No, I think there's lots of applications, as we've seen, for sales, marketing. I can also see applications in terms of training people, and having an appreciation of how people's learning styles might be different as well, because of their DISC personality. So yeah, that's been really, really helpful for me. I hope it's been helpful for everybody that's listening. And yeah, how can anybody get more information if they would like to contact you?
I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. Probably the best way there is to go onto my website, which is www.vidacoaching.co.uk, and there's a contact form in there that you can get hold of me.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and I hope everybody found it interesting. So please do get in touch with Tanya Ces Maneiro if you need some more help. Okay.
Thanks, Vanessa. Bye.
Bye. Bye.